The mighty Be In Sports, joining up the world from our international broadcast centre here in Qatar. I'm Richard Keys.
I'm Andy Gray.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, that's a fairly good start.
Very good start.
It's downhill from here. Subject we've been discussing much on Keys&Gray, safe standing. Well, Mourinho was complaining recently, Andy, about how quiet things were at Old Trafford. The answer, it seems, is to turn the Stretford End into a safe standing area. We shall be discussing later. Is there such a thing?
Probably not.
Safe standing?
Probably not. Not 100% safe, 100% of the time. No.
They do think there is at Celtic, where, of course, they have an area. Also, we'll be hearing from Mark Robins.
There's the pressure to win, the pressure to get back up into at least the level above, want to be back into the Championship and then fighting to get into the Premier League. But that's down the line, and that's what we're building towards.
Mark Robins, Coventry manager, who takes his team this weekend to Brighton. There's one of football's ironies. I remember going to watch Coventry play Brighton when Brighton were a League Two team.
And the Withdean.
And we were in the Premier League.
Oh, wow. That's a while ago.
How times change. We'll also be speaking with the Wigan boss, Paul Cook, who's tongue-in-cheek asked for permission to play 14 for Wigan against Manchester City.
Even that might not be
on
enough.
Monday night. Paul, of course, who's working with Peter Reid at Wigan these days. We've also got Arsene Wenger on a host of different subjects, including this one.
I always respected my contract, you know. I would like to remind you, I said no to all the clubs in the world, to all the biggest clubs in the world, to respect my contract.
I wonder if he regrets that now.
Turning one down?
All of them, he says. I've said no to all the big clubs in the world.
No, I don't. Do you know what? I don't think he regrets it, because I think he's such an affinity at Arsenal. He's basically built the modern Arsenal himself. So I don't think he'll be thinking, I wish I'd gone.
Wouldn't you have rather been Ancelotti and gone to Paris and Madrid and Munich?
I would.
And, yeah,
I would have, but
too.
I don't think he feels like that. I think he found a home for himself after, where was he, in France? Coaching in
Monaco.
France. Yeah, he found, and in Japan, of course, he was there. So he's found a home for himself, and he's built the club, and he's taken it from Highbury into the new stadium, and he's won doubles, and he's had the Invincibles. No, I think if he looks back, I might be wrong. He might sit there and think, oh, I wish I'd have gone to Real Madrid, or I wish I'd gone to Bayern Munich, or I wish I'd gone to Barcelona. I don't know, but I think right now he doesn't regret staying there.
Also, we will be speaking to the author of a new book entitled The Man Who Kept the Red Flag Flying. Subject matter, Jimmy Murphy, who really should have been on the plane that crashed in Munich, but because he was the part-time manager of Wales, Wales had an international match on the same night that the boys were in Belgrade. He survived. I mean, the rest we know now much about, but not many know about Jimmy Murphy, the man who kept the red flag flying. Without him, I think it's fair to say we wouldn't know modern-day Manchester United. That's for later. This is what we did last week on the programme. Jan Auger Fjortov joins us. How is the VAR experiment continuing in Germany?
Well, confusing as in England, and you always think that the Germans will fix anything, especially cars.
This is not here so that we could show you that Darren Gough, the former England cricketer, has had a hair transplant.
It's good.
Because we could do that by pointing him out.
Ah, yes, that's true.
He's had the very same, of course, hasn't he?
Any chance for me?
None, I'm afraid, no. Absolutely none. What is going on at your football club?
It's very, very similar to when Jose Mourinho was in charge. They're actually playing in exactly the same fashion. And it's almost as if, and I hate to say it, that they're looking to get him out.
Most of the back pages, including my own this morning, have gone on Arsene Wenger saying that basically the English have become masters at diving. I think he's right. You know, the foreign players were doing it 10 years ago, so we're trying our luck now when it's all gone out of fashion.
This is Sweden, Östersund. Early season, we spoke to Graham Potter, the manager of this football club. Englishman, he got his team into the Europa League. Now he's got them to the knockout stage and a date against Arsenal this week.
Fantastic. I'm really proud of where we've come from and where we are now. The feeling in the town, and when you walk around and you see people with Östersund Football Club hats and scarves and a real pride in the club, is something that's really special.
3-0, of course, to Arsenal Thursday night at Östersund, but we're very proud to have brought you that story before anybody else early season.
Yep.
Good luck to Big Ek.
Yes.
Very good friend of ours here at Be In Sports, has been installed as the manager of Scotland for the second time.
Well, it took them a while, Scotland, but they eventually I've got a proper manager in. Wasted a lot of time in Michael O'Neill. Big man is a very good choice for me.
Other stories that we've touched upon that we like to update you with. Gambling, Andy, we were discussing recently. Well, they haven't exactly cracked down on it in England per se,
No.
but they're stopping live match day gambling. I think the bottom line is there's too much money to be made, and therefore they don't want to run these boys out of town. But during the course of the game, they're going to try and stop it now.
No in-play gambling.
No in-play gambling. Step in the right direction.
That's a little bit.
Well, particularly when you read, as I did this week, Kieran Dyer's book, serialised in the Daily Mail, how the golden generation were destroyed by gambling. We've heard this story many times.
Yes.
Dyer's come out now and said, yes, it happened. We were travelling to matches and go back a decade, golden generation, £50,000.
Yeah.
Well, it's still an awful lot of money, but to those guys, worth a lot more now then, Andy, than it is now. He also, by the way, something we've discussed often, confirmed that England players always struggle when they pull on the jersey for one reason or another.
They are put under intolerable
stage
pressure.
fright.
The press in England do put them under incredible pressure. I don't know why, because the recent history is not a good one. So what they expect from them, I don't know.
Well, sadly, too much.
Too much, exactly.
That's the bottom line. How many times have we said, shouldn't somebody in the boardroom
The buck stops at the top.
take responsibility for this failure? Well, at West Brom, John Williams, chairman, sacked as a result of what's been going on at the Hawthorns this season.
We might see more of that now, though.
We might.
With all the owners.
Shame, because he's a good man.
He is a good lad.
He's worked at Blackburn previously. He's a football man, John. And this domestic television deals in the UK sorted out this week, although interestingly there is still 2 packages left, which I think an Amazon or a Netflix are going to pick up. Richard Scudamore here, who's always a great advocate of one man, one vote. You know, in the Premier League, 20 members, everybody gets a vote.
Equal split.
He's easing towards moving his loyalty to the Big Six.
Is that for UK rights or is it overseas?
I think overseas, but
start
going
with.
forward you'll find, if he's still in post in 3 years' time, the Big Six are getting more and more powerful and they are going to dictate what happens going forward.
I could see overseas.
More and more often.
I get the overseas argument. You know, we living in the Middle East as we do, you do notice that the Big Six are the teams that everyone talks about. So if they're getting a bigger share of overseas
but without
money,
the big,
I think
without the other
that's
14, there is no
worth
Big
listening
Six,
to.
is there?
No.
So, see both sides of it.
Yeah.
England, having been at loggerheads with the state of Qatar, the Football Association here for as long as, well, I can remember, since we were awarded the World Cup here, Andy, in 2022. But Greg Clark's been trying to smooth things over of late. Looks like England are going to play a game against Qatar prior to 2022, and they've signed all kinds of agreements on cooperation going forward. Good news.
That's very good news.
And this was the day that Alvaro Morata was diagnosed as having a back injury that would keep him out of Chelsea's team for the rest of the season. Enjoying a little frolic with his wife here, Andy, and 24 hours later he was on the bench at Chelsea, having recovered from this back injury that was going to keep him out between now and May.
Yeah, that's amazing recovery. Maybe that was part of his treatment.
Well, it could have been, yes.
Well, maybe he was
yes,
testing. See, we've criticised him. Maybe he was just testing his back. He says, "Right, love, jump on me, and if I don't collapse, then I'll be fit to play."
Well, you might be onto something
Yeah,
there.
I think I might.
Further investigation required. This is the best tweet of last weekend. Sunderland 3 down at Bristol City, you'll remember, at half-time. Their official Twitter feed said, "The Red and White Army are heading for the exits, and to be perfectly honest, you can't blame them." Well, those who stayed were rewarded, because by the end of the second half, things had changed. It's 3 Bristan Bull, they announced.
I love it.
Brilliant.
I love it.
FA Cup fixtures this weekend, and Slaven Bilic, incidentally, is in our part of the world to be part of our coverage. A whole lot of interesting ties, not least Coventry's at Brighton. We'll hear from Mark Robbins shortly. And, of course, Wigan's at home to Manchester City on Monday night. We'll be talking with Paul Cook as well.
I'm looking to see if there's any surprises there. Don't see many.
One way and another? Well, I can see one straight
Where?
away. Well, here.
Coventry?
Yeah.
No, you're getting beat, fella.
End of the road. So, what's the answer to Old Trafford being as quiet as it is and cheering Mourinho up? If anything can, it would appear safe standing. We'll be discussing next. But something Mourinho's talked about more than once this season, Andy, how quiet Old Trafford can be. The answer, it would appear, is to install safe standing. This from The Guardian this week. It didn't make much of a story, or hasn't done yet.
Not yet.
But I suspect going forward it will. Is there such a thing? That's the question I just asked you. Let's put that to David Pennington, who is the Vice Chair of the Manchester United Supporters Trust and joins us now. Hi David, how are you?
Hi David.
Hi guys. Hi, good morning. Is it afternoon out there, is it?
Afternoon out here, David. Yeah, you've got that perfectly.
David, it is such a sensitive subject, not least, of course, at a football club, 40 miles from where you are right now at Liverpool.
Yeah,
is
sure.
there such a thing as safe standing?
Yeah, look, I mean, you've only got to watch the TV pictures, not just in the Premier League, but all around the world. And not everybody, but a load of people are standing already. People have never sat down. A lot of people go to football, they want to stand up, they want to support it. And it'd be much better if it was sorted out so that it can be done formally, safely, and keep everybody happy. Not everybody wants to stand in a football ground. It's not like, the terrors of the past. We've now got a much broader, sort of dynamic, socio-democratic group of supporters in grounds. But a lot of them want to support the team vocally, they want to stand. And what we're after is for segregated areas, sections of the stadium, not the whole stadium, to properly accommodate that.
I mean, I'm just thinking, isn't the Stretford end almost standing right now, David? Don't most people who go on the Stretford end actually stand and watch the team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the upper tier of the Stretford end, and yeah, it's and we keep doing that.
Right.
The problem we've got in our ground is that, and we've gone public with this earlier in the week with a letter asking the club to sort of look at various measures to improve atmosphere. But the Stretford end, the lower Stretford end at the moment, has since the mid 1990s when the new stand was built, a big executive section right in the middle behind the goal, which you can again see from the pictures, and we've then got an enlargement of the family stand as well alongside it. So the lower tier of the Stretford end, the bit that everybody sees and where you would expect, and where in the past the atmosphere always came from when it was a single tier ground, is only about a third people who are in what I would call sort of like normal seats.
What's been the reaction, David? Are you making headway?
I think we are. I think there is common ground here. Sorry, are you talking about safe standing or about the actual
safe standing?
Bastions? Safe standing, yeah. Well, I mean, there's the National Football Sports Federation have been pushing this for a long time. We as a trust work with our other fellow supporter trusts, and that includes Spirit of Shankly, Liverpool, and we are pushing government to change their mind. The problem is it needs government to change their mind. We're in dialogue with the Premier League. The Premier League are looking at it and sort of forming a view. Our club has gone public and said that they would favour it, and if they were allowed to do it, they would do it. And the reason they want to do that is so that they can meet what everybody wants. You need supporter choice in the ground. So in Old Trafford now, you've got probably a good few thousand, probably 10,000 that would want to stand at a whole match. You've got a family stand. You've got obviously a whole age range. You've got people who are going to come periodically, for matches. A lot of them want to see. What the club want is to be able to say, right, there's an area of the ground where people can stand, and you'll probably get the atmosphere from there as well, and there are good locations for it. And anywhere else in the ground, people should be sitting.
When would you like
to? Can then properly enforce it.
When would you like to see this brought in, David? Is there a time scale on it?
We'd like to have seen it brought in 10 years ago. Honestly, as soon as possible. It's the reality is it's not the priority of our government, and they don't see a real win in it. I suppose if I'm looking at the sort of cynical political view, it's there are much bigger wins for ministers in sport. In terms of access for all and promoting sport across the country, than there are in bringing in safe standing, which is sort of, seen to be just for the laddish group. Now, it isn't just for the laddish group. There's a massive age range of people that, in my area in Old Trafford. I'm not a lad myself, anything but. But it is down to them, but I think it is down to making the right case. Everybody accepted that, even though I think Hillsborough has now proved that it was not standing per se that caused the problem, we respected the fact that debate and that inquest and everything had to happen. Now that's proved, that it wasn't the fact that people were standing. It was poor policing and stewarding. It was poor ground. It was open terraces, where yes you could, get a crush. So it wasn't to do with that. Everybody accepted nothing could happen then, but now we've moved on. As I say, we still have a job to do to persuade the powers that be that it has to happen.
David, I'm sure I'm not going to tell you something you don't already know, but Andy and I have been talking about this for a long time now, 12 months ago, more. We were talking to safety officer at Celtic Park, where they do have a safe standing area. Why do they then, and south of the border, you can't?
Because it's different legislation. Basically, the Scottish Government control that. It took Celtic a long time to lobby, their local council and their national government to accept it. So for us, it's a great win. It proves it can work. And we'd like to now. Ministers have said, yeah, we will look at that, but they told us a year ago they would look at that. It's been in almost 2 years now. They're not the only club that's done it. Well, they are obviously in the UK. But our legislation on the Football Supporters Act, that happened after Hillsborough, applies to England and Wales now post-devolution. But there are countries elsewhere. There are, I think, Ajax and Eindhoven last year put in safe standing into their vocal sections, and they said they put it in to improve safety.
Well, it's interesting.
Of course, we've got a problem. We've got a problem right across Europe. I mean, UEFA have taken the same attitude that they wanted to. Whether it was to sanitise the game, I don't know. It potentially was a response to Heysel, but Michel Platini, when he was in power, was very keen to impose all-seater requirements. So you have the ironic situation now in Germany. So if you take the famous yellow wall in Dortmund, for a Bundesliga match, everybody stands. They have double, or I think almost double the capacity in that area. When it's a Champions League match, they have to have half as many people in the ground nominally allocated to a seat.
David, yes or no? Last question. Is it going to happen?
I'm an optimist, and I'm going to say yes.
Oh, good luck with it, David.
Thank you for talking to us.
Cheers.
David Pennington, Vice Chairman of the Manchester United Supporters Trust, on the subject of safe standing, which will always divide opinion, but he's right, there are places that it works perfectly well.
Yeah.
FA Cup weekend, 5th round, Coventry City have battled their way through against the likes of Maidenhead.
Yes.
MK Dons.
Braintree.
No, not Braintree.
No.
This weekend they're at Brighton. Mark Robins back in charge, of course, after what I like to think was initially a very successful spell, and he's pleased to be back.
I think, things in the main have been positive since I came back. I've only been back 11 months. And I love working here. It's a really, really good football club. Great support, great fan base. And we're just trying to build, we're trying to build it into a successful team.
4,600 tickets sold out in 4 hours, I think, just gets the mood of the town and the city in this game.
It does, yeah, but that's the supporters all the way through. Away support's been magnificent. We took over 8,000 supporters to the MK Dons last game, and the game against Stoke prior to that, Boreham Wood and Maidenhead were decent crowds as well. So. Listen, we're well supported. We know that we're a well supported club, and the supporters have been long suffering, and we're desperately trying to turn those fortunes around for them.
It only took me 1 second to walk into this training ground where I saw memories of the 1987 FA Cup final. Talk me through it. It was a classic, wasn't it?
That was a great game, really good game. I remember it well. I live it every day because that's all we talk about when I sit down for dinner with Oggy. When he comes in the morning, he'll talk about his medal, his winner's medal, and rightly so. I think he's really proud of it, really proud of the club, and you know, it's been a long time since we had that sort of level of success, and you know, where we are in the period at the moment, we have to stomach, we have to fight, and we have to try and get back and build as quickly as we possibly can do, but as realistically as we possibly can.
1990. What was the club you were playing for then?
I can't remember. I had that many. Yeah, I was at United then, and we had. I was young. I was a young player. I'd just broken into the team, sort of in and out of the team, and I remember the cup run was a really big plus point for everybody really concerned with the club, and it was the first trophy that Sir Alex won since he came in. And the first of many, as it turned out.
In fact, you were instrumental in that. At that point, remarkably, Sir Alex Ferguson hadn't won a trophy, and you scored the winning goal to get you into the final.
I got a winner in the third round. I got a goal up at St James's Park later on, and then I got the winner in the semi-final as well, which was brilliant, you know, because that goal took us to Wembley and then gave us a shot at the cup.
It's a young crop of kids here, but they are getting somewhere.
You know, I think that this club obviously there's the pressure to win, the pressure to get back up into at least the level above, want to be back into the Championship, and then fighting to get into the Premier League. But that's down the line, and that's what we're building towards. But it's small steps, and we can't get there quick enough. But it's, you know, we're going to need that time to build. The challenge is there for everybody, and the challenge to win for Coventry City is big, you know, and the realisation of that for some of the players that have come in is there now. And but we're doing okay. We've still got a big shot at achieving our objective for this season. And then obviously the cup game on Saturday is one that we're all looking forward to.
28,000 at the Rico recently to watch a League Two match.
Rugby?
No, Andy.
Football?
A football match.
What's that? Oh, well done.
When Coventry City played. And the story that we were talking about, 3 weeks ago, whether Coventry would be at the Rico next season, agreement has been made.
Deal done.
And deal done.
Excellent news.
They will be.
Good.
Yes, that's very good news.
That's excellent news.
Wish all the boys all the luck in the world and more at the weekend.
Correct.
And here's somebody else who might just need that. Paul Cook, I mentioned at the top of the programme, has tongue-in-cheek suggested he wants 14 players for Wigan's tie against Manchester City on Monday night. Paul joins us now. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Great, thank you.
I'm suggesting, Paul, you might need 2 players for every position. Never mind 14.
You know what, Andy? I've been watching, you know, as you do, we've all been watching the DVDs and clips, and you know, the genuine truth of it, you've got to try and think of a way that you can win the game.
Yeah. With
these guys, it's difficult. Whether you get after them, you sit off them, you seem to be able to master anything that anybody wants to do.
I mean, obviously, don't want to give us too much information, Paul, but what's your thinking at the moment? Do you go toe-to-toe with them, or are you a little more conservative than that?
I think the general consensus between myself, the staff, you know, the lads, that if you do go to toe-to-toe with them, you will get beat. That's the reality of it. You know, if you sit off them, you'll get beat. So the truth of it, I genuinely believe it's got to be a mixture of both.
Mm. Are you looking forward to it, or are you concerned by it?
I don't know whether looking forward to it's the right word because there's such a good side, and you know, and by the way, by the time you speak about them like this, we're going to try and beat them. Do you understand my point? It's
yes.
You can't keep saying how great they are and what to do. We've got to try and beat them, but they are very strong. You know, they've got so many good players through.
Paul, is this almost a free one for you then? You know what I'm saying? You know, you don't expect to be there, no one expects you to win, and at the end of the day, I guess promotion is the most important thing in your mind.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, I was just listening to Mark Robbins there. I think for all the teams, League Two, League One, not so much the Championship now, you know, priorities getting up into higher divisions, etc. The FA Cup becomes a nice distraction. Do you know, we've managed to beat Bournemouth and West Ham, you know,
brilliant.
All in the next round. Man City, there's a couple of really heavy teams in there that logic tells you you're likely not to win the game. But we've got to believe we can. You know, we've got to believe we're going to have moments in the game to score goals, because that's what we've got to do to win the game.
Do you expect City to come with all the big guns?
Andy, every time you put an eye on, you see someone else's back fit. Silver. It just, listen, at the end of the day, I'd like to see Man City have the strongest, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
Have you any special plans?
No. I think we're going to try and kick them dead early on, just to, you know, not really, Richard. You know, it'll be a great atmosphere. You know, they are a very special team, what everyone says about them. You know, but come Monday night, the players will take the pitch and in the belief that we think we can win the game. I know it's a random, I know it's a little bit madness, but if we don't believe it, there's no use taking part.
No, that's fair. One thing I have to ask, Paul,
yeah.
You should, of course, been going into this, as far as we're concerned, those of us who write scripts, as the League One leaders. Now, 2 defeats from your last 2 means that's not the case. What's happened?
I tell you what, the good thing about our game now, you're now under pressure in 4 days. Listen, our lads, genuinely, I think we conceded 1 goal in 9 league games before that, a penalty. In 4 days, we've just conceded 5. You know, sometimes football has a way of just doing these things to you. Yeah. We've conceded 2 goals, and for me, you just keep going. It's your habits, it's belief in your players, and you just keep going. But the disappointment thing for us, we've got 2 games in hand on Blackburn, we've got 1 game in hand on Shrewsbury, who I must say are having an outstanding season, Shrewsbury. Come by the time we take the pitch again in the league, we're going to have 3 games in hand on both of them. So the reality for us is the FA Cup is becoming a distraction, and we must get back to basics in the league as quickly as possible.
Paul, let's look on the bright side. You'll have 3 games in hand on most of them, and an FA Cup quarter-final to look forward to.
That's what you're in football for, Richard. You know, our lads are off today. You know, we're going to do our main preparation tomorrow. If you can't look forward to that on Monday night, there's something seriously wrong with you, isn't
it? Correct.
Paul, it's great to hear you talk. Thank you.
And by the way, Paul, look after Reedy. Look after Reedy for us, will you?
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Richard.
Paul Cook, manager of Wigan Athletic, and they are having a fantastic season.
Yeah.
We did speak, if you remember, to the guys at Shrewsbury earlier in the season.
Correct.
It's been nip and tuck between the 2. And the other warning I would make is that right behind them are Blackburn Rovers, with Tony Mowbray in charge.
Flying up the league,
and they have flown, yes,
they have.
right into a position of contention. A little bit like Villa in the Championship, I think, Blackburn Rovers.
Yeah.
Just getting amongst it at the right time.
Form at the right time.
Right, you're listening to Keys and Gray, watching indeed Keys and Gray, and we'll be talking with John Cross next. Yes, you're watching the Mighty Be in Sports. If it's the traditional manner in which you've joined us, good. But don't forget, you can now catch us on Twitter and Facebook to all corners of the globe. So if you now you're in receipt of that information, tell your mates how to catch up with us. This is John Cross, Chief Football Writer at the Daily Mirror.
Oh, travelling.
Travelling. Where are you travelling to,
Where
John?
are you going, John?
I've got a busy day ahead, Tottenham press conference at lunchtime, and then Chelsea tonight. So looking forward to that. I love the FA Cup, boys, as you know. So gearing up for another FA Cup weekend.
Well, let me tease you, John. We're just about to listen to Arsene Wenger tell us why Pep Guardiola is a better coach of his, why he regrets not turning down every big club job in the world, and why we've got VAR wrong. But that's for us when you've gone. In the meantime...
And by the way, you're not loving the FA Cup too much. Your team's out, if memory serves me well.
Well, that's why I regret it.
John, Paul Pogba, what's happening? Does he genuinely regret joining Manchester United?
Well, I actually think that the way it's panning out, boys, I think he's more regretful of the way it's happening for him, or not happening for him, I should say, on the pitch. Than anything else. There is, and we've quoted Paul Ince on this in our paper this morning. Basically, there is this rule of thumb in life, isn't there? Never go back. And I think it's particularly pertinent, I always find, in football. I mean, he did start life as a trainee at United. It was a huge thing for him to go back, and I think he actually felt that going back was the perfect platform for him, because he would know the ground, he would know the sort of the surroundings, and would fit instantly into life at Old Trafford and Manchester United. But I have to say, I think earlier part of the season he was outstanding in games, and it's not just, I don't think, his form. I think it's frustrations, and I don't know. Reading between the lines here, guys, I wonder whether he's heard of interest from Real Madrid. He's aware of perhaps better offers and opportunities to come his way. And therefore he's decided that, has he taken his eye off the ball, as it were? I do think his performances on the pitch and perhaps that lack of form just recently might suggest that is the case.
Yes, you've just answered my next question, John. It's an easy conclusion to jump to, but an obvious one too, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually think that Real Madrid were interested that time before, and I just don't think at that time when Pogba made that £89 million move from Juventus to Manchester United, that basically they necessarily had that money at that particular stage. But he was a player that they were interested in, that they were courting even then. And as we know, Real Madrid just don't go away, do they? If they miss out on a target, they're happy to go back to it. And the lure of Real Madrid, I think, sometimes is so great that I think it stays with the player, and that player thinks, well, if I can go to Real Madrid, be part of a new revolution at the Bernabeu, because all the talk is, of course, isn't there, that they're going to rebuild and build something special for the future, starting from this summer with a new manager, with a new squad. I mean, I looked at that game against PSG. What a game, by the way, it was on Wednesday night. And you did feel in amongst that, though, that they're just clinging on. They're waiting for the rebuilding work to start. And if Pogba was to be, and has been offered the opportunity to be the central part of that, then I do think that that's perhaps getting to him more than anything else. But again, it does throw up this question, doesn't it, about Mourinho and really whether he's got that in his locker or whether he's lost that special connection with players as Manchester United manager, because Pogba is not the first one to be unhappy. Has Mourinho lost his magic touch in getting the best out of players?
John, where are you with this one? Arsene Wenger and Aubameyang, cup-tied footballers. I understand why, when Andy was playing, for instance, a generation ago, the rules stood, because you could go out. It was the case with Villa, you joined at the semi-final stage, and you could change things around to go on and win within 90 minutes of having signed a player. So I get all that. But when we've got a window now that shuts in January, why is it that players are cup-tied, having played in different competitions, Europe or domestically?
Well, what a strange setup. And it almost feels to me with UEFA, because you have this weird situation whereby if you play in the Champions League, you're eligible for the Europa League. Obviously, it's slightly different with Aubameyang. It seems to me, and vice versa, of course, it seems to me that there's an acknowledgement there from UEFA that basically we don't quite agree with this rule. We don't know quite how to the best to get around it. But the Aubameyang quirk is bizarre beyond belief, Because I was thinking when the pursuit first came up, I was thinking, blimey, there's another player who could play in the Europa League. And then when you hear he can't, simply because Dortmund were relegated but haven't yet played in that competition, to that competition, it's utterly bizarre. And yet Mkhitaryan is eligible because he played in the Champions League for Manchester United, not the Europa League. Well, this one takes a lot of getting your head round, and I just think they should do it as all bets are off. The Premier League, if we think about it, is a competition in its own right. Why not just follow it? As your Champions League is supposed to be a European Super League, so the nonsense that goes around the restrictions of cup tying some of the best players in the competition is ridiculous, and it doesn't do the Europa any favours whatsoever.
Yeah, now, another one which interested me this week, Kieran Dyer's book's been a fascinating read. Ollie Holt, the author. But it hasn't caused the stir, John, that I expected, particularly when he referenced the golden generation destroyed by gambling. I know we've all heard those rumours, but I can't remember anybody coming out as dramatically as Dyer and making that statement. Why has it not made more of a mark?
Yeah, we obviously it filled about 5 pages one day on the Daily Mail, understandably, rightly so, and then had expert analysis, I think, the following day from Martin Keown, which, interestingly, I think Martin sort of tried to sort of downplay it a little bit, and it was an odd one, that, and I just felt that it was. There were so many rumours and so much nudge, wink, wink at the time when basically the fallout happened after that and what went wrong and why it went so badly wrong. But do you know what? What was really interesting to me was I'd heard obviously about Euro 2000 and there was sort of, lots of talk about it going into 2002, 2004. But I hadn't realised, and what fascinated me most was that it basically carried on into 2006 and then 2008. And basically, I think Steve McLaren is and would be, always remembered as a very good coach. But did he manage the team right at that time? And the inference really, reading between the lines, was that Kieran Dyer was saying it got worse, these betting scores, as time went on. Yeah. And basically, you might remember, obviously, we didn't qualify for 2008. And, I thought that was one hell of a story. And I must say, I found it amazing that basically those players couldn't have, bad feelings for a teammate that they were supposed to pass to because they just lost 10 grand in a hand to them. I mean, it was so bad for morale. Well, it was amazing, wasn't it? The kangaroo court, though, guys. The sort of Dyer was admitting that basically they drew a line under it and there was a curfew 3 days before a game. Whether or not, everyone was on board for that one.
Of course. Another one. That was the paragraph that I read through fairly quickly, John, and dismissed like you.
Absolutely,
of course.
Absolutely.
And by the way,
it was a fascinating read.
One or two modern-day pundits all scuttling behind the sofa as well when they got a mention.
Not me.
Modern day.
Oh, modern day. John, what did you touch on? The PFA chairman's been coming in for a bit of flack this week, Gordon Taylor. What have you made of that?
Yeah, it is an interesting one. Honestly, I've had a bit of a row with one of my journalistic colleagues on sort of social media, and I don't completely agree. I mean, Paul Hayward is one of my favourite writers in Fleet Street, and I sort of even had a discussion with him in Turin, and Paul was, sort of examining the sort of moralities and the whys and the wherefores of Gordon Taylor in a sort of a brilliant column this week, thought-provoking. But look, my view on this is that Gordon Taylor is in charge of one of the most successful unions in the country. He is still on a fraction of some of the members that he represents. And some of the stick that he gets, I think, for the way that he runs that union is completely unfair. I mean, I did hear one sort of former chairman sort of absolutely battering him the other day for sort of coming in and trying to sort of broker thing. And his first reaction to it was Gordon Taylor was asking the club to pay up the contract. Well, in my mind, that's good. If you're a union, if you're the player standing up for the player, that's proper union leadership. You might not want to, it might not be sort of particularly sort of edifying for absolutely everyone concerned, but at least he's trying to sort of push his players and the people that he represents. Look, I think the money that we are talking about is the issue here. It is so big that I think it's coming for some criticism. And I just don't think that basically I'm a very proud member of my union in what I work, and I don't be, if someone was earning and did such a brilliant job, I wouldn't begrudge them, and that's my point. But I do feel that at the moment with football struggling for grassroots funding, struggling for pitches on a Sunday, it is difficult, I guess, for Gordon Taylor to be so out of step with everyone else who's working at that union, which, by the way, is in essence, of course, a charity. So it's a difficult one, but I do actually have some sympathy with Gordon Taylor because he runs one of the best unions and most successful unions in the country.
Do you know, I would have more sympathy with him, John, if that union was funded by its members and not by television deals. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I do see that. And I think that's the point. I mean, the subs really should take care of it, in my view, because I mean that's what we do. I'm a proud member of my union, and basically I pay subs. That's what you do. And it's just it is bizarre that basically these high-earning players. And I shouldn't stress enough that Gordon Taylor earns a fraction of some of the members that he represents. But I do feel it should really be up to the members rather than the TV money. I mean, the Premier League, the last round of bidding before this one, was so proud in sort of saying, look, a lot of the money, because it was such an extraordinary deal, will go and filter back down to grassroots level. And they were keen to promote that, and rightly so. But I feel that, what they obviously couldn't promote was that so much of a chunk of it obviously goes to the PFA. And that's their problem, isn't it? Because it's a slight embarrassment for everybody concerned.
If that money, John, finds its way to the people that need it, a generation of players that were abused by painkillers and injections and those who are suffering with Alzheimer's and other
hip replacement.
Yeah, hip replacement. Anything you like, Andy. Fine, I get all that. Fine, but that so much of it goes to Gordon rather sticks in my throat, I have to say. But anyway, listen, that's for another day. John, enjoy your Chelsea.
Yes, enjoy the game.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for talking to us.
Nice to speak to you.
Cheers, John, Chief Football Writer at the Daily Mirror. See, that's my problem.
But do you think allowing the TV companies to fund it puts them under pressure? I mean, the TV companies could then put him under pressure for certain decisions.
Well, I think going forward, there's going to be a major shift in how that is funded. He's right. I mean, those guys who probably the top end will never need a union.
No.
So are they bothered?
Well,
no.
they're not bothered.
I mean, there's a balance.
Most of the league isn't bothered.
No.
I mean, if you went round Championship down.
But you play your League 2, League 1 football on the bottom end of the Championship. You do need representation. You do need a union. And there have been times when Gordon stepped in and his whole union have stepped into difficult issues that they've helped solve. But 2.29 million for a union leader.
It's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot.
You're watching Keys and Gray on the mighty Be In Sports, either traditionally with us through your television or Facebook and Twitter are both available these days. Tell your mates about that. When we come back, we'll be hearing more from the Professor, Arsene Wenger. Right, let's hear from Arsene Wenger, as often we do, his monthly exclusive sit-down with us here at Be In Sports. Much to discuss, much I'm sure that you'll find interesting, starting with, I know this, the fact that Pep Guardiola, when he was at Barcelona, went and sought advice from Arsene Wenger about being invincible.
I think, honestly, doesn't need me too much to know how to do it, because he won much more than I did. And yes, he spoke to him. I spoke to him a few times, and he came once to my home when he was a player. He wanted to play for Arsenal, you know. And I think he has done much better than I have, and he's knowing very well what to do. He has exceptional teams, and he's managing them very well. So I think I respect what he does, because he has a clear vision of the game, has a positive attitude, a positive philosophy. Even if he doesn't win, I have as much respect as when he wins, because I think people have an influence in the game. It's very important they have a positive attitude towards the game.
So many articles now suggesting that it's all set up for you to leave at the end of the season, despite the fact you have a 2-year contract. And I know how dearly you hold to the rule of a contract that you sign. What's your reaction when you read articles like that?
Look, once you're a while somewhere, people want you always see always somewhere else. At the moment, I always respected my contract. You know, I would like to remind you, I said no to all the clubs in the world, to all the biggest clubs in the world, to respect my contract. So that's always what I try to do. After that, we have as well to accept in our job that the future is the future. But for me, the future is win your next game.
Pep Guardiola has been talking about protecting players. This is something you've talked about in previous years. Would you like to see the yellow cards being upgraded? Do you wish people had listened to you a little earlier, or do you fear that the defending in the game is all, the art of defending is being lost?
We are all here to serve the game, not the player. The player is like us, he has to serve the game. And the referees are like us, they have to serve the game. And that is mostly down to intention, you know. With what kind of intention do I go into any contact? Personally, I feel more today that the elbows are more a danger than all the rest. And that is not punished. Not retrospectively, there are people who get away with elbowing heads. The most dangerous part of us as human beings is the head, you know. And nobody knows today the consequences of people being hit in the head with elbows. And I believe there's one thing that people get away in the English game is that.
Do you foresee any problems arising with VAR?
You have to go through it, make it as simple, as pragmatic as possible, but we have to go for it, 100%. I'm 100% a fan, not especially the way we want to do it in England, because I don't agree with that. The element I'm not happy in England with is that they want, as a last resource, the referee to go and watch the screen and make a decision. I don't agree at all with that, because we have to, when you bring a new technology in, it has to suit to the way of life. And the way of life today is speed, you know, and it's not who is in control. It's make as possible the right decision, but as quickly as possible. And this process will slow it down, and will question the whole process. I think it will not work like that, or at least will not work well. Will we have still problems the other way around? That means the guy upstairs who can make decisions. Yes, certainly, but let's not complicate it.
Well,
another one of our group.
Well,
he's partially against.
He's foot in, foot out, because he wants it.
Yeah.
But he wants it with more speed.
He's not going to get it with more speed.
No.
As long as the referee still has to go on a clear and obvious error, and that's something that hasn't been cleared up either, is the level of error. It was clear and obvious when it started. Now it's just become anything. As long as he still has to go, Richard, to the touchline, to stand there and watch a screen and see 4 or 5 replays of that incident, then I'm afraid we're not going to speed up.
What Wenger is saying is that he is trusting to the video assistant ref or the assistant video assistant ref, as we mentioned last week, and that's a dangerous territory to get into.
It's just another opinion. I keep telling that. That's just the thing. How many opinions do we want?
Love him to come and see us at some point, Arsene.
Yeah, that would be nice.
And talk these things through. He
Well,
says,
he likes our channel, maybe he will.
the man who kept the red flag flying, not Sir Matt, who, as we know, was desperately unwell after Munich, Jimmy Murphy, his assistant. A relationship that started, Andy, during and back end of the Second World War. Yeah. Wayne Barton is the author of that new book, The Man Who Kept the Red Flag Flying. Wayne, for those who don't know, who was Jimmy Murphy?
Jimmy was the youth team coach pre-Munich. Around 1955, he became the assistant manager. And really, he was interim manager, wasn't he, for about 6 months. But by all accounts, according to all the players from that time, he was mostly in charge for the following season as well. And then he sort of retired back into the background once again after that. And also, as you said earlier, he was the manager of Wales as well for a time.
What made you do this book, Wayne? What inspired you to do it?
I've been fortunate to work with a few former United players in the past, and the idea of, particularly in the post-Ferguson era, you know, the identity of United's style of play and everything like that has been one it's been a topic on the table. In working with some of the former players, it was clear that there was a great affinity held for Jimmy Murphy, and really, after interviewing Harry Gregg, I think it was in 2013, and the majority of our conversation was about Jimmy, I thought, well, I should really turn this into a book, and that's what really motivated me to do it, and it's been an incredible project to work on.
It's a fairly simplistic description of who he was, really, Wayne. Put some more meat on the bone for us. What was he responsible for? Who was he responsible for at Old Trafford? Okay,
so if we're to say that Sir Matt Busby is responsible for the sophisticated style of play of United and the way that, you know, the style of their play, Jimmy Murphy was described by Nobby Stiles as the nuts and bolts man. He put everything together. You can list any member of the Busby Babes, and Jimmy Murphy is responsible for their development. Duncan Edwards, Bobby Charlton, you know, every single player, Bill Foulkes, Roger Byrne, so many of those players that he was responsible for. He was dedicated and relentless on the training pitch to players' improvement and that sort of gelling as a team as well. He was one of the most vital cogs in the system, and, you know, I've made no bones about it. I think he's the most important man in United's history, and that doesn't extend only for the work that he did after Munich. It's to do with the pre-Munich work as well.
Wayne, was he happy? I mean, I'm listening to you talk about him there. Was he happy to keep himself in the background? Did he not really want to be out in the forefront of everything?
Absolutely. I think having had the taste of managing Wales, I think that was enough for him. He didn't like the political part of being a football manager. You know, Matt Busby was he was great and diplomatic in the way that he spoke and everything like that. He was a great leader of men. And Jimmy was at his absolute happiest and most content on the training pitch, developing young players. He was happy to see them off to the first team, and obviously, you know, seeing Duncan Edwards and Bobby Charlton fulfil their potential as they were doing gave him great pride, but just as great pride he got from working with those younger players who were going to be the next in line after that.
It's extraordinary that by a quirk of fate he would have been on that plane that flew to Belgrade. He almost certainly, well, could and should have died, but didn't, because he was doing his part-time job managing Wales. Did you get some idea of how he felt, what it was he went through, putting all the pieces back together post-Munich?
Yeah, it was a time. Everyone talks about the sporting part of it, but if you talk about it from a human aspect, there was his great mentor, Matt Busby, who was gravely ill, and they didn't know at the time if he was going to pull through. His best friend Bert Wally had died. Tom Curry, another trainer, had died. So he was dealing with all this personal anguish as well as the players that he'd nurtured and seen grow up. So how he actually dealt with that is one of those great human myths and mysteries, isn't it? You know, how a person actually recovers from that. His son, Jim Jr., tells it, he puts it very well. You know, he went into his office at roughly 4 or 5 o'clock after hearing of the disaster. He drank a bottle of whiskey and came out at 4 a.m. a changed man. And he was a changed man after that. And it really did change him, as you would expect a disaster like that would.
Wayne, thanks for talking to us. Honestly, it's a fantastic read. It's always difficult talking to an author because you want to share what he's written, but obviously the idea is go and buy the book. It's available on Kindle and ebook, and that's how I read it yesterday. It really is a terrific read. And do you know what? I agree with you. Arguably the most important man in Manchester United's history, bar none. And it's nice that he's at last getting some respect, Wayne. Thanks for talking to us.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's Wayne Barton. The book is The Man Who Kept the Red Flag Flying. Jimmy Murphy. It's an absolute must for all Manchester United fans. He knows Alex Ferguson, what Jim did for Manchester United, and says so in the book. Right, FA Cup weekend, of course. Slaven Bilic is with us, along with Michael Gray. Chelsea get us underway Friday night. Wigan, Manchester City on Monday night. Good luck to Cookie and the boys. And Andy and myself will see you back here same time next week. Enjoy your sporting weekend.